a podcast about amazing people from an incredible state. Join Mike Broomhead for Amazing Arizonans, presented by Resolution Copper. Copper is essential to Arizona's economy and to America's future. Learn more at resolutioncopper.com.
Amazing Arizonans telling great stories of people that live right here in our great state of Arizona. And you can't come from this generation, my generation, and not know my guest, Marvin Young, known as Young MC.
Bust it.
Thanks for doing this.
Mike, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited about having these conversations with you, having listened to your music growing up, and then we talked about this on the air a little bit about the history of how people in suburban communities heard rap music, hip-hop music for the first time. Sure. But you were involved long before that, and you were a part of that culture in New York when it was growing, and it was big in New York City in the urban areas, but we hadn't heard it yet.
Yeah, it was kind of like one of the hobbies. It was the things that kids did. I didn't play a lot of sports. I didn't do graffiti. I didn't do a lot of the other things with kids running around the neighborhood. And when I found hip hop, I went into my friend Jeff Taylor's basement and I saw somebody rapping over two records on turntables for the first time. I think I was 10 or 11 years old. I was hooked. And I felt it was just a great way for self-expression, kind of get out of the whole, rudimentary things of school and really be able to express myself. So that's what got me into it.
Who were the early people that were doing this that you looked at and thought, man, these guys are amazing? Who were the people? Were there any names we would recognize later on, but you watched them at the early beginning?
No, well, I mean, even though Sugar Hill was Jersey, and guys coming out of the Bronx, for a kid in Queens that didn't drive, that's a world away.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Spicer, better known as Super Rhymes, had a record that was 15 minutes long, and that was on Spring Records, and that's one of the first that I can remember. Since I was in Queens, I didn't have a lot of the access to a lot of the local stuff, a lot of the really early stuff. When my friends Rob Bass, I was around Rob Bass and Freedom Williams, and they were having a conversation about the first rap records, and they were talking about stuff that I just never even come across, being in Queens even, that I just never heard of until, way later. So at the time, it was, just early Run DMC, Sugar Hill Gang. We knew about Run DMC, not necessarily before they got signed, but as they got signed, mm-hmm. and they were in Hollis. So that was about as early as it got. Plus, I was a lot younger than a lot of those guys too. So I wasn't able to go to clubs to hear the stuff being spun from other boroughs.
Is that when you realized that it was possible that you could then be a star because they were first a star?
I can't say that I realized it was possible. I realized that they could do it, and I realized that it was something that could be tangible, but I didn't see it as a replacement for my education or quote unquote real job. So I stayed in school right up until I got my degree, really. My high school and my college degree. Even I had my record deal for 2 years, and I still stayed in college to get my degree.
And you wrote big hits when you were in college.
Yeah, I did. But
not just for you, but for other people.
For Tone Loc, yes. I co-wrote Wild Thing.
She said, hey, you too. I was once like you, and I like to do the wild thing.
And co-wrote Funky Cole Medina.
So I got him strolled over to the other side of the cantina. I asked the guy, why you so fly? He said, Funky Cole Medina.
But between the normal business workings of a record label and publishing companies where you write something and it comes out, it may be 3 years from when you write to when you really get paid from it. And then depending on the kind of deal that you've signed or kind of, deal that you're in, how much you get paid is, it's kind of up for debate at the time. So for me, I stayed in school up until I knew that I was making enough as an artist that it made sense for me to continue with the artistry and not try to go to grad school or get another job.
And I don't want to get too negative, but I've heard a lot about the music industry and how artists get taken advantage of, that they're trying to make it and they get taken advantage of along the road. They've got all the talent, they produce the material, but they don't reap a lot of the financial benefit.
Well, see, it's funny. I've been on both sides of that. So from the artist standpoint, you're right. You write the material, you're putting your name out there, you're running around on the road and doing all the studio work, so that's a lot to put in. If you talk about the production company or the record label, they're putting in the money to press up the product, to do the photo shoots, fly you around wherever you need to go. If there's, promotion people that need to be paid for radio, for appearances, for all those things, deals that need to be made at the time with record stores, all of those things, that's all money coming out of the record company that the artist doesn't pay. So the record company is thinking, okay, I want to make that money back. That's something it took me a while to understand being an artist. Having said that, a lot of times, you hear more stories of the record company coming out ahead than you do the artist coming out ahead. And if you see a rich artist, you can be damn sure that the record company got rich too.
When you see, I would imagine that when you went somewhere, maybe you're not recognized when you go somewhere and your song comes on and you still watch people, even young generation, the kids of the people that grew up on your music, love your music. Does that still do something for you? It
does, but I will say that it's very rare that I go somewhere if no one knows who I am. And anywhere that they're playing music, the DJ or somebody's going to know who I am.
Right.
And a lot of times out of respect, they won't play it. So they won't give me the cringe moment. Like, oh, that's him. And everybody starts pointing. It's like, oh, that's your song. You'd rather avoid that if you can. But I do like to see people's reaction to it. And I love hearing the stories because you're not there for the people's stories. And there are people around our age and they'll say, my first girlfriend like this, or played it at my wedding, or my kid's birthday, or this is the first album my parents let me listen to because rap album because there wasn't cursing in it. Yeah, all those stories are heartwarming to me because that meant that I made a mark. You know what I mean? That I played a role in people, influencing people with my music at the time.
And I know we talked about this on the air. I had a friend, I still have a friend, his name is Kevin. He's a school teacher and a Golden Apple Award winner in Southwest Florida where I grew up. And Kevin loved hip-hop music at the very, very early part of life. And he wanted to be the first really successful white hip-hop artist. And this was before Vanilla Ice, before anybody else. And he said someday someone's going to get it right. Couldn't even imagine Eminem doing it. But he still to this day loves the music. He still owns a DJ company. And it was music like yours. And what he talked about even then was working clean, where it could be played on the radio and everybody can hear it and everybody could enjoy it, and the message meant a lot to him. And he had a couple of songs that got play at home, and I think if he had a couple of breaks here or there, or if he'd have signed with a record label, he probably could have been successful. But you were an influence on him.
Well, no, that's good. That's heartwarming, and that means that people were paying attention not only as fans but also in terms of my journey. It's all I can say is it's tough. The fact that I'm my age now and I'm still doing it and I'm still doing shows and still making music and whatever, I never would have predicted it, even with my success as a younger person. So, but the thing is if I was in any other business, if I was sitting behind a desk, with a C and an O in my title, I would be at the height of my powers. I would, my experience and also the ability to still make a plan and execute it.
Sure.
I'm not losing my faculties yet. The fact that I was able to do that would be priceless in any other business.
Yeah, wisdom.
Right. The wisdom would be priceless in any other business, but in the music business, it's kind of like, okay, on to the next. And even promoting my new music that we've talked about, I'm hearing just anecdotal stories coming back to me from, radio guys that are talking to other radio guys. Oh, is he, his last hit was so long ago and don't come back to me with anything else and blah, blah, blah. And these same people will come back on the next single and pick it up because they see that the record's actually getting traction and actually doing something. So it's good because I feel like all the experience that I've had and all the records that I've written and all the stages I've been on have kind of led me to this point where I can make good music and kind of, bring it home. So I'm happy.
Could it even be that if they heard your new music, because that's how how we connected.
Right.
I heard your new stuff. I was watching on YouTube. I heard your new stuff, and I loved it so much. And I told you, I was looking you up just because, hey, I wonder whatever happened to him. So I didn't even know you had new music out. And then I got hooked. Wouldn't it be now for record companies maybe, or for radio stations, if they didn't see your name and associate you with that generation and they just heard the song as if it was just from some artist?
Oh, sure.
They immediately have to love the songs.
I was told an anecdotal story from my radio guys that are pushing this new stuff. They went to a radio person that wasn't adding the record, that wasn't really giving it much of a listen. They said that they liked the record, and they said, okay, if it wasn't Young MC on it and it was just some random person, the person said, oh yeah, no, I'd add it right away.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what do I do at that point?
Yeah.
Because I'm at the point where between the wisdom and experience and everything else, I feel like I'm making the best music of my life. Like I see like the pen stroke leading to the stage. Like I have that link for the first time, like a tangible link when I'm making my music, and I want to try and bring that home as much as I can. It's not like I write a record now and I'm like, oh, I hope this turns out well on stage. I kind of figure that it does from the creation of it. And I wasn't like that even 10, 15 years ago. So my hope is that I can just keep hitting them over the head with good stuff.
Yeah.
and it gets to the point where they say, okay, no, he's doing it. This is not just some fly-by-night lark, midlife crisis thing. He's actually like doing it.
And I'm just a fan. I don't know anything about the music business, but you were so unique. That's what made you so special. Then when you heard a song from you, you knew it was yours. And now you've evolved and you incorporate AI into your music, and you've got that little drop of that female voice in, and it's unique, but it's also current. It's contemporary.
Right.
That is, I think, a skill set that not a lot of people possess, that you would be doing what you used to do, except now you're doing it better and you're doing it in a contemporary way. I think that's amazing.
Well, thank you, Mike. And I will tell you that probably 15, 20 years ago, I don't think my ego would have made room for
really?
even an AI voice. And that's what a lot of the younger kids are like too. They're like, okay, I'll do if I have a big time rapper, then I'll do a guest star thing with that. But every song having, a little element that cuts in a little bit on my, spotlight.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to the point where it's like, okay, maybe that can be something that'll get, kids that wouldn't necessarily listen to me otherwise to say, okay, that's an interesting, interesting aspect to his music. Number one, and number two, in terms of AI, a lot of times it's gotten a bad rap because there's so many creative things that could be done with it, falling short of, I'm going to have AI just make the whole song. I'm still doing everything I can creatively, and I'm inserting the AI in certain places that I think will be clever. That's pretty much it. And I'm getting, some decent response, and there's, it's kind of both sides of the coin, but it allows me to continue to do the stuff I do. Like I've been told in these, 2024, 2025, that, half of my job as an artist is being something of an online personality. And that's not really what I got into this for, and that's not really what I'm looking to do. But having that AI, having Teresa, having the AI personality as part of the music kind of leads me down that road. And I have stuff and I can show them to you, where I had Teresa do some radio promos and thanking the first DJs to play the first song.
Oh, wow.
Loose.
Yeah.
And talking about video programmers and all these things that you would normally either have me do or have a letter written from a record company exec. Like, why don't I just do like a little PS? And people actually responded well to it. And that's something that I hope to do down the line as things progress with the music. But I said at this point, if I have that element, that's something that I can not only incorporate in the music, but incorporate in the marketing of the music. And it's still Young MC. Like, you say my name, you know who I am, you know what I do, you hear my voice on the music, you know that it's me, but then I have, Teresa's part of it too, so that's just an element that goes along with it. But I don't think that Teresa is doing anything but adding to what I got going.
And your use of it is what's so clever about it.
Thank you, man.
And do you think, and I should have asked this earlier when you mentioned your education, you made sure you finished your college education. Do you think that has helped you in the business to be a better business person? Do you think it helped you?
Okay. It's helped me in non-direct ways. I think You talk a lot about social issues, and you talk a lot about what was going. So the value of a straight college education has lessened because you have a lot of people that want to either get rich quick, or the technology is changing so quickly, or you can't really outsmart a computer. You can get a kid as smart as they can be, but the computer's going to do what the computer's going to do. Let alone the fact you're talking about a university curriculum. Try and have that keep up with how the technology's changing. Not the easiest thing. How the degree has helped me is twofold. Number one, the biggest thing that I think a college degree or any college degree, advanced degree, it teaches you how to finish, especially a college degree. An advanced degree, at least it gives you a specialty, and you're going further on, and obviously you go to medical school to be a doctor. That's fine. But for me, knowing that I could get into school, finish my degree in 4 years, sign my recording deal at the beginning of junior year, and still be able to make a multi-platinum record, win a Grammy, and finish my degree at the same time. It's like it showed me the value of finishing all those things. So if someone were to come to me with an album project, a film project, a scoring project, or anything, I wouldn't be intimidated by knowing that it's going to take a year, 2 years, however long, or
discipline.
Just the discipline of that. You take that, against the person that goes to community college for 6 months, drops out, and then says, "Okay, I'm going to get this job," and the job is a 2-year project. Well, if they're looking at your CV, they're like, "Wait, you couldn't even get through 6 months. How are you going to do 2 years for me for this check?" That's the one thing. The second thing, and not something as obvious as you would think. A lot of people I was sitting across from, even in the music business or, getting deals or whatever, I was as educated as they were. Usually it's the executive talking to the talent, and the talent doesn't have much knowledge of business. A lot of people I was sitting across from, I was as smart as they were. Now, that may have cost me some deals, but that also prevented me from getting into some really horrible deals because nobody was even going to approach me with it, because if they thought, okay, even without a lawyer, if he reads the contract, he's going to know what's going on. My lawyer allowed me to negotiate stuff under 3 pages. Anything beyond 3 pages, I had to give to him. But those things, it gave me a certain confidence walking into the meetings and the like. And it's given me a confidence even now, because being able to come back and have music that's actually getting traction now, it shows how much this business revolves around perception. Yeah. I would assume you go through the same thing in terms of ratings and all that. It's like, you may feel like you're doing the best shows, ever. But if the ratings aren't there for whatever reason, or if you feel that you're doing mediocre shows and the ratings are going through the roof, it's the perception of it. Sure. But as long as you feel good about what you're doing, you just hope that you feeling good about what you're doing lines up with the perception of you. Right. That's where I am.
Have you heard Shaquille O'Neal talk about why he went to college and went back and got the degrees he got? Right along the lines of what you're talking about. I heard him in an interview say that he would go into meetings with his manager, and they would speak to the lawyers or the managers and not him. Mm-hmm. And it was so he went to school and he got the degrees, and then he was saying to the people, "Now you can talk to me. We're on the same level now." Yeah. And I thought that was a great perspective, and it's exactly what you're saying, that you're on a peer level with these people now. And I think that's terrific. I think that's an excellent way to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, and I didn't go to school thinking that. I just felt like, unless this thing is so big that I won't be able to go to class anymore, won't be able to take any more tests, let me stay in and finish it. Now, going to grad school, that would be a different thing. Fine, I had the summer, record took off, so I never looked to go to grad school. But being able to finish it, it gave me the confidence, and it also showed people around, like, okay, when he's focused, he does it. So I walk in, I have the degree in my pocket, I've written for Tone Loc, I have my stuff that's going. If someone wants to involve me in a project, they're like, okay, there's a good chance he'll finish it. There's a good chance that if we ask him to make an adjustment here or there, that he'll be able to do it and he won't freak out. That's a big deal. As someone who's hired people and brought people in for projects and that kind of thing, more than half the job is finishing. More than half the job is showing up and finishing. You know what I mean? So that and a lot of that, once again, comes, a lot of the confidence will come from the perception of saying, okay, I'm confident in what I'm doing.
Was the celebrity hard to get used to when you then couldn't go out somewhere without being recognized? That time when you were winning awards and multi-platinum records, when you just were, people wanted autographs, people wanted pictures. Did that take getting used to you? Did that happen overnight for you?
It didn't happen overnight, but it happened at a time when there wasn't social media, so it happened a lot slower. And then I totally avoided it. I got used to like, oh, supermarket opens at 6 a.m. I'll be in at 6:05 buying my groceries. Don't go to any malls at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't go to any movies on Friday and Saturday night. If I have to go to somebody else's show, I'll make sure that I'm backstage. I'll do whatever I can to not bring attention to myself, and then I'll see how it goes. And that's been a way that I've been able to skate around a lot of it. When someone recognized me, I kind of deal with it on a one-on-one basis. I had a autograph signing out here at Trill, the hip hop store out here, and not a lot of people coming up recognizing me, and obviously because I'm there for that. But they're telling me stories and all those things, and you just deal with it on a good social level. But then I got in my car, drove home, or go in my car, go get something to eat. There's some people that do what I do for a living that their whole focus is being recognized. Their whole focus, their whole self-esteem. And for me, I got stuff to do, dude. If you recognize me from a video or recognize me from music, more power to you. You want a picture, fine. I got stuff to do. And when in approaching it like that, it's really been helpful because I have this thing. I call it the noise principle. It's NOYS, and it's like never overestimate your significance. So it's like you don't walk into a room and just assume everybody's going to know you. If they do, great. But if nobody knows you, keep it moving. Yeah. And not having any preconceived notions or assumptions of what my level of fame is or what my level of gravitas is has helped me a great deal. It allows me to watch the room. It allows me to kind of have a 30,000-foot view of the situation of everything. And that's been really helpful for me because there's a lot of people that get caught up and say, oh, my God, that record, my first record was platinum. My second record didn't even go gold. What am I going to do? And it's like I treat it like a lottery win more than a salary. Like this level of acceptance and this level of popularity is not normal. At least not for me. Yeah. And it's not something I aspire to. I wanted to be good enough at it that I could do it for a living and not have to go, do another job. Yeah. And that's what I've done. So
you mentioned earlier about liking your work. There's a difference between knowing you have a good song and knowing you have a hit. When do you realize the difference? Like, I'm sure when you, like your song Loose, I love that song. Now, whether it becomes a hit by other people's standards, I don't know. I think that's a fabulous song.
Thank you. Now, here's the thing, and Loose is a great example because I've been planning this quote-unquote comeback for a couple of years. So I had several tracks to choose from, and Loose just kind of jumped out in terms of a way to introduce Teresa, my new style, my new production, the record label. It just was a good way as an introduction. I gave it to some people at radio, and I think maybe I got 6 or 7 stations to play it a couple of times. Nothing at all. I came with the one after Fun Part, and they said, oh, that's an amazing song. That song is a little bit more derivative from a lot of things I was listening to, and I put it together quickly. But they're saying, okay, that's the inspired song. So I just shut up, I step back. Hey, they're comparing my work to my work. They like this one of my work better. Go with it. And that's the first time I've charted in 22 years. I got a Spin article. I got a Billboard article, all from that song that came together very quickly in comparison to, it literally was a conversation that I was having with a DJ friend of mine, Debonair, in Los Angeles. And we were talking about music, and he's like, what I like about your music, Marvin, is you cut through the BS and you get to the fun part. Because my thought process was the more you try to say with a song, the less you do. Because nobody goes to music to be preached to. They go to music to get away from something. Right. So getting to the fun part, I'm like, oh, that's a song. And literally I wrote half the song in a hotel room in my bed the next morning, which is not something I normally do, and created the track, kind of reverse engineered it and created the track and came up with it. And it turned into a good solid song, and now that's quote unquote my comeback. So knowing something is a hit, for me, it goes back to the thing of knowing that it's the best you could do, knowing it's the best you could do with that situation, with when it's presented to you. And then, the hit part comes from what other people say. Because there's people all around the world that feel that they're making hits every day, but when it goes into the marketplace and they get that response, can it be said that it's a bona fide hit?
I got to know what it's like, though, to be standing on stage and have thousands of people singing your song. Yeah, as you're doing the lyrics, you've got people that are with you every word of the way.
Well, here's there's a couple of things. One, I've never had to take a female on the road to sing the hook. I could be doing a fraternity and the guys will sing the hook back. So that's a cool part. But having said that, sometimes people think they know the words and they don't know the words. And I think I want to say I was in a town in Minnesota, and I was just fixed on a lady in the audience that was just singing. Not that she was pretty or that she just was singing, was singing the song with such vigor that I was like, oh, she knows it. And then she forgot it. And then by watching her, forgot where I was. And literally lost 4 bars, and then picked up where I knew the track went in a certain place. And I'll say, I will never look at one person again for my lyrics.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff that happens. It's more of going from person to person and knowing, you're telling them. You don't have them tell you. So that was a lesson that I learned in that scenario.
Do you still like performing live? Is it what you enjoy most?
It's what I enjoy most because I'm connecting with people, and stage fright only comes from not knowing what you're going to do. So once you get to the point where you know what you're doing, then it's literally just a communication exercise. So I've had a lot of people say that they like the fact they can hear every word and understand everything that I'm doing on stage, because it's not about me trying to recreate the record. It's me communicating the record or communicating, the thoughts behind the lyrics to the audience in the moment. So I may have a little bit of backing track with the hook or something like that, but my vocals are live. My mic is always, loud and hot. And my vocals are always live, and I'm always shouting out the city and talk about where I am, or if something happens in the room, or someone came on before or coming after, I make reference to let them know this is special. Like what's happening now here is going to be just for now and here. It's not like, you could do a direct recording of tonight and I'll play it tomorrow night in the next city.
All right, so then let me put you on the spot. What'd you think of the halftime show at Super Bowl?
I thought it was good. Here's the thing. I've heard a lot of different things in terms of the technical aspects of it, that if you were to go back and listen to it on YouTube and listen in headphones, that you would be able to hear, it would be a lot more entertaining than how it looked in the house on that day. The problem with not the problem, it's just one aspect of rap music, is that the lyrics are coming so quick. And the room is so big, or the venue is so big, that trying to communicate that and have it get, to millions of people through satellites and all that, something will get lost in the translation. I've done NBA halftimes and NFL halftimes. And the one thing with NFL halftimes, even if you have a monitor, if you do a call out to the audience, you don't wait on the response. You keep going. The response is going to come probably a second later. Yeah. So just that kind of like echoing and feedback and stuff, it really puts a damper on the performance. So, there's some aspect of it where you're almost doing it for the camera or for the mirror. You're not even doing it for the people that are in the house. It's one of the few, scenarios where you're not really doing it for the people there in front of you. So I liked it. I liked it for what it was. There were a lot of, he took a different approach. He wanted to make a statement with his halftime performance. There's probably 4 songs to about a half a dozen songs that people would know a lot better that he just didn't do. King Kunta, he didn't do.
Yeah.
It's All Right, he didn't do. There were several songs that I'm like, where's that? He didn't approach it like a greatest hits thing. And you can see quotes from him where he says, Kendrick says that he lives for the now. So he wanted to take this moment in time that halftime performance was going to be in and make the biggest statement he could with it. So I give him props for that. I have a soft spot for it for 2 reasons. One, because Kendrick being from LA, like that whole scene, that's where my fame came up. Kendrick was a little kid when my stuff was coming out. So to see what the LA scene was developing into, what a lot of people are saying the best rapper ever is from LA, I never thought I'd see that in my lifetime. So that's one part of it. Second part of it, it's a guy rapping at the halftime show of the Super Bowl. I never thought I'd see that in my lifetime either. It was one thing when you had Dre and Snoop and Eminem. I mean, that's literally, if you took the cumulative record sales of all the artists that appeared on that one, I would assume that would be a bigger number than any other halftime ever done. I just there was so much star power on that stage. In the back of my mind, I'm saying, okay, that's the only way we can get rappers up there. That literally you have the Mount Rushmore of rappers, put them all together and say, okay, let's go. Dre, Snoop, Eminem, 50 Cent, and Kendrick. and Mary J. Blige. My God, really? And where some other years you just have one, Coldplay. Okay, that's fine. We'll just have Coldplay do it.
Right.
That's So I'm looking at it in terms of the genre. I know that there was divisive, and there were some people that didn't like it. I'm looking at the fact that you can have Kendrick Lamar on the same footing as Coldplay, or the same footing as Paul McCartney, as The Who. That's the thing that gets to me. Now, whatever changes they're going to make, but that statement was made. Then and with how big Not Like Us was, he deserved to be there. For me, as someone involved in hip hop and someone whose life is hip hop, that in and of itself, regardless of the artistry, meant the world to me.
To hear you talk about it because you've been so involved in the industry, as a fan, I told you when we talked on the radio show, I was backwards. We heard Sugar Hill first.
Sure.
And that's the first hip hop song we ever heard. From that, we went backwards. My friends and I went backwards to Curtis Blow and listened to some of the artists that came before. So it took us hearing something contemporary to go back and want to hear more of the history.
And the irony of that contemporary piece is, and those guys are friends of mine. Master G is a really good friend of mine.
Tell him I still remember every word of Rapper's Delight.
I will. That was one of the most, I guess, engineered or concocted. Those guys, I think they had met before, but they didn't come in as a group. They would, Sylvia Robinson built them as a group. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, you have to watch the documentary. There's a couple documentaries out, and it's pretty amazing. They're literally rapping for her in her living room, and then they say, "Okay, we'll take you and this okay," and one take. They had the instrumental track going, and no overdubs, no nothing. So that was something where they knew that was going to be one of the first time that mainstream society heard rap music, and it was made for that. It's a great record, but if you listen to some of the records that came before, it's a lot more organic. It just is what it is. So that's the irony of it. You hearing it, it was created to get you interested in rap music enough for you to look back.
Sure.
Because if you had heard some of the earlier stuff, it was so narrowly focused that may not be enough. Like, I don't necessarily dig, all the stuff they're talking about. I don't know if I'm going to listen anymore.
Well, for a kid that grew up in a beach town on the Gulf, Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America now, but that grew up on the Gulf, I wouldn't have been able to relate to a song like 8 Million Stories.
Right.
I would have never, but when you listen to it, you hear Rapper's Delight, everybody can relate. I remember I was a 12-year-old kid going to the skating rink and listening to that song. Then you catch the other stuff that's older, and maybe you're not relating exactly to the message or the song, the message. Mm-hmm. You're hearing something that now you're interested because this hooked you.
Exactly. And it was created to hook you. So that's a
mission accomplished, because we were hooked.
Right, exactly. So for me, like I said, when I was coming up as a kid, hearing it on FM radio, right alongside the R&B and the pop records, I'm like, wow, the rap records have the same frequency range as all these other records, and people listen to it just the same. And they cut down the version, for 3 minutes, and you heard all the rappers go, and I'm like, wait, what I'm doing in my neighborhood at block parties and house parties can be, can spread out to the nation and the world.
To the listener, you were such a hit. Your music was such a hit, but then to find out you wrote hits for other people. Do you like writing as much as did you like writing for Tone Loc and seeing that success for him as much as you liked writing for yourself and your own success?
I would say yes. I liked watching the success for Tone, not only as a friend, but also seeing the strategy of it, and also seeing how people related to his voice. It was a totally different cadence, a totally different style than the stuff that I was normally writing. So it showed me how much variety my writing style. How much variety in writing styles I had, but that's not something I would necessarily write for myself because I didn't think I'd be able to pull that off vocally.
What about the sampling of the heavy metal music or the rock music?
Well, that wasn't me.
Where did that come from?
I mean, Matt Dyke and Mike Ross. I mean, they had the record collections, and they went at it and created the tracks, and that came from them, and then we're just writing over the top of it and trying to perform the best over the top of it.
When you see people that come from that world, Tone Loc, LL Cool J, Ice-T, cross over and become successful actors like they have. Did you aspire to that world? Did you ever want to?
I did a little acting. I made a movie and acted in it, but it was more of a bucket list thing. Because even in the film stuff, I like the writing, and I like the I like the writing and that creating part better than the actual execution. And even me now and pretty much always, my love for the stage comes from the fact that I know exactly what I'm going to do, and there's stuff that I can do on stage that I don't think anybody else can do as well as I can.
Right.
So, and that comes from the writing. So if I know I take a little bit extra time, I do one little edit on the record, and that's going to make not just one stage performance, but literally hundreds of stage performances better because I made this little change, because every time I rehearse it in the car or every time I go over it in the car, I mess up in the same space. Okay, I got to change that space because my instinct is telling me to go somewhere different. Then I get on stage and then my instinct matches the records that I'm making. It's like that's a pretty cool place to be. So the whole idea of acting and doing somebody else, like I've never had anybody write lyrics for me. So me performing somebody else's dialogue, it doesn't have the big draw for me because of my because of my love for writing and what I get out of performing the stuff that I write as a musician. Even the movie I was in, I wrote all my own dialogue. So
do you like mentoring people? Do you like people that they're trying to do something, and do you look at them and say, I think I can help you? Do you like that? I like the thought of it, but the problem is there's not a tangible place where you say you're ready or you're not ready, right? If you're a doctor and you can't do an operation, you're not a doctor. You're a plumber and you can't fix a toilet, you're not a plumber. If you're a singer and you can't sing, that's somebody's opinion. Yeah. There's machines that can make you sound like you can sing. If you look at it in a video, all of a sudden you can sing. That's the problem of it, is that a lot of the technical things that the technical obstacle course I put myself through to make sure my music is good and on a certain level, I don't see other people doing. I try and instill that and try and give a little guidance to artists I work with or whatever, but everybody feels that they know a shortcut. So, there's certain things that I do that I probably don't have to do, like pretty much every trip when I'm driving to the airport and I'm going to go do my show, I rehearse the show in the car once or twice on the way to the airport to put it in my, midterm memory, if not my short-term memory, because I'm getting on stage either that night or the next day. And that's something I always do, so that if I ever have a moment on stage, track goes out, something weird happens, I have the rehearsals from the car in my mind, and I've been doing this forever. Don't really have to do it. I could listen to something else, but I'm like, no, I'm going to work. It's like you put on your suit to go to work. There's certain things that I wear on stage. There's just a certain approach that I take to it because it's my job. And there's a lot of people that kind of look at being a musician as the alternative to a job. And I don't look at it like that. I look at it like it has to be, there has to be some level of work ethic, but not the crazy like, I'll quit my job, I'll quit school, I'll put, every waking moment into it. And that's not going to be the thing that makes you get a hit record. You have to work smart, but you have to be honest and tell yourself you're not ready, or tell yourself you need to get better. Because everybody feels, and that's... Nobody that wants to be a doctor is going to say, where did they get a load of me with a scalpel in my hand? I'm going to cut like nobody else. Yeah. Every musician thinks like that. Once I pick up a microphone, I want to sound like Whitney. Maybe there's somebody incredibly talented you aspire to. But most of the time, especially rappers, they don't want to sound like anybody else, but they feel they're the best them, and the best them is going to be better than anything ever made. When you have that as the basis of how you approach making music, it's really difficult for somebody to say, yeah, I had a hit, 30 years ago or 35 years ago. This is how you should do it. Yeah. It's hard for that, and I understand. I used to be that way too. So, what made you settle here in the Valley? What was it about the Valley? Because you could have settled anywhere. Keeping it a buck, as we say, I came here in a relationship, and a relationship didn't work out, but the city did, and I found myself
going to the airport and like liking to come home as opposed to going to LAX or even, I wasn't even close to Burbank. So I was heaven when I could go to Burbank, but they had so few gates. But from travel, traffic, medical care, accounting services, even my friends, my friend circle, the majority of my friend circle in LA, if they weren't in the music business, they knew someone who was. So if I said I had new music, I know this guy at Warner Brothers, let me give it to him. And if I don't want to give it to you to give to your friend at Warner Brothers because I have a connection, I don't want my tape, floating around or whatever, then I'm disrespecting the friendship. Whereas I'm in Arizona, I just happen to be Marvin, the guy that makes music, that has friends that are in real estate or in, media. I know a bunch of people that are on air and that kind of thing. Like, those are the things that I like. This is the biggest small town you'd ever see, and I like it for that. It's big enough where I can go do my city things, but small enough where I, have a friend relationship. I can actually have a friend relationship.
Yeah, I've been here for 30 years, and I fell in love the first time I came out, and it's just gotten better. And it's hard to describe to someone that's not been here. Like you said, it's the biggest little town there is. And it still feels that way. I love it. Yeah. I love it here.
Yeah, it's great.
When you perform, I want to make sure, I had so many questions for you. I want to make sure I get them all in. I'm sorry I'm bouncing around, but when you perform, do you still get excited about a performance, or do you ever get used to that excitement of getting on stage?
Okay. Everybody, in my opinion, everybody gets nervous the first 10 to 20 to 30 seconds that they're on stage. And a lot of it just has to do with technical things. Is the mic working? Can they hear me? Am I hearing the track? Am I projecting well? How's my breathing? I get through a few breaths and get through the first verse of it. That's where that comes from. And then once you get it and you know that you're doing the thing that you've done hundreds of times before, if not thousands of times before, then it gets to that communication stage. And when you're at the point where you see people that have, gotten their babysitters or whatever, and they're coming out to have a good time, and you're able to help provide that, then that's exciting for me. And then if there's ever a moment of boredom or anything, I think I'm like, I'm getting paid this tonight and I'll be able to buy that. And like literally those thoughts will go through I'll be able to pay this bill. I'll be able to take care of this. I'll be able to contribute to this project. And those thoughts will literally go through my mind as I'm rapping the lyrics, and that'll be a thought in the back of my head, and that'll calm me. So it's pretty interesting.
What do you count as your biggest accomplishment?
Oh, man.
Record sales, awards, or what is it for you that gives you that satisfaction when you feel like you've accomplished something?
Well, it's hard because for my essence, I want to say my longevity. The fact that I'm literally 57 years old and I feel like I'm making the best music that I've ever made. I could say the Grammy. My Grammy was the first televised Grammy. But then literally, and you would appreciate this, Mike, how would it feel if you knew that the high point of your life was when you were 22 years old, and there's nothing you could do that could even come close to that? I didn't want to put myself in that headspace. Other people can think that. And I've been confronted in this new promotion of new music of other people that definitely think like that. Oh, he's over with. He's done with. His big hits were blah, 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 blah. And I have to prove to them that it's not. Not that I'm doing it just to prove to them, but as long as I keep it moving the way that I know I can, I'm going to show the talent and show the confidence that I have in the music that I'm making now, that I honestly feel is the best music I've made in my life. Like, there's nothing that really gets past me, and I can communicate the best version of myself in my music. So, like, the longevity and being able to take every experience and everything that I've gone through and develop the skills that I have now is pretty cool. That's the thing that I'm proudest of, because there's not a lot of people can do it. I can tell you, I go back on these I Love the 90s show, I Love the 90s tour shows, and when I'm telling the artists the things that I'm doing with my new music, they always tell me, keep going.
Yeah.
And because they know what I'm going through, and they know what an accomplishment it is for me to get traction with it now. So, a lot of them feel like they're smarter, and I feel that they're smarter now than they were when their records were big, and they wish they had the intelligence then that they have now. And I can use some of that in what I'm doing now. So that to me, that would be the biggest accomplishment, because a lot of the other stuff, a lot of it's perception, a lot of it's right place, right time. And I wrote Bust a Move in 90 minutes. So to think that 90 minutes of my life is affecting so much of my life, and I say, okay, I could say maybe the 90 minutes that I wrote Bust a Move, but I just was literally just almost completing a project. I had finished my schoolwork and I literally wrote it in pencil, and it was called Make That Move. They changed it to Bust a Move, and that was it. That was literally that was it in terms of the changes that were made. So, yeah, I would say my longevity.
It's interesting. I think we're similar in the idea of our best days being behind us. I don't know if I told you this story, but I was telling somebody, maybe this would made me think of it with you, is in 2004, before I was in radio, before I was doing any of this, I did an event for the president at the time he was in town at it was Bank One Ballpark then. Mm-hmm. There were 30,000 people there, and I was the MC of the event. And I was married at the time, and I went home after the event, and it was 30,000 people.
Sure.
And I remember going home and telling my wife about the night. I was introducing all the guests and the President of the United States. It was a huge presidential visit. And we were laying in bed, and she said, "Man, you're never going to top this night." And it scared the heck out of me, because I had the same thought. What if?
Right.
What if this night in 2004 is my best night? If it's everything else is downhill from here, and my life has just been, I listen to you talk about how passionate you are about things. I feel that way every day. This project we're doing, these Amazing Arizonans, I love this project so much. Right. I love what I do on the radio, the TV project that I do. I don't ever want to feel like there's not something else to aspire to,
Yeah, I do. And a lot of the, you'll never top a night like this comes from the fact that you were standing there doing it in front of 30,000 people. If you did the exact same thing in this room and did it better the next year, 10 years later or whatever, you would know it was better.
Right.
But 30,000 people didn't see it, so it wasn't that night.
Right.
That's the thing I wanted to get away from. It's like, okay, I was at a point where everybody was listening. I had a big record, and everybody's singing it back to me, whatever. I feel like I've made better records than that. I feel like I've put more of my skill into other records than that, but I haven't had the same accolades. That doesn't mean they weren't good.
Are you good with that? Are you okay with that?
I am fine, because those accolades came one time. You have to look at it like, to use your situation as an analogy, if you're hosting events and they're only in this room or only in this studio or only in the same little area, then you have a certain expectation of what you're going to give to it and what you're going to get out of it. If you get in front of 30,000 people one time and the president's there, and you do the exact same thing you've been doing over and over and over again in other smaller situations, you know what the response is going to be, or you know tangibly what it's going to be from that one time. But just because it's not 30,000 people every time doesn't mean you don't come back to the small room and get better.
Right.
That's basically that's what it is.
These conversations are exactly that. I don't ever look at how many views the podcast gets. Mm-hmm. To be honest, that's not why I do this.
Right.
To be able to talk to people like you, and to talk to Jerry Colangelo, and to talk to Al McCoy, and talk with him before he passed away, to have those conversations with people where they're willing to tell their stories when it's just the two of us in the room, that's as satisfying to me as anything else that I've done.
Right.
Because getting you to explain to me and to talk to me about your life, I think is just so interesting. And then have other people interested. I'm glad they do. I'm very happy with that.
Right.
But it's the idea of having people come in and tell their stories. That, to me, is just as satisfying as 30,000 people.
Right. And that's what it is. If you took the 30,000 people and the president and all the hoopla away and you did it, you'd be able to judge what you did.
Yeah.
But all of the greatness of the night comes from everything outside of you. Mm-hmm. So how much of that greatness reflects on you? You just happen to be in that place doing the thing that you do over and over and over again.
The accomplishment at that time, I can tell you, though, for me was I was not a known name in anything.
Right. No,
and I was asked to be the MC. So for me, the compliment was being asked to do the job.
Sure.
That was the accomplishment then. It's different now. Now you're right. It's about doing something that you respect in yourself that you're accomplishing.
Yeah.
So let me finish with this. What are you already planning what's next? What's next for you?
I'm planning to be flexible, to adjust to what is in front of me to tell you what next is. I think the best way to describe it is this. I took a couple meetings to look for, potential distributors and the like, and I decided to just distribute myself and just do, the independent TuneCore thing or whatever until it gets to the point where, I have enough heat on me where it would make sense to make a shift. But I had more than one person ask me, okay, where's the album? I want to hear the album. I don't have an album. I purposely don't have an album because, I made a song called Worry About That in 2021. That's when I had gotten a first new piece of equipment, and this was right after COVID, and just, seeing how the sound would be and the like, and also seeing what the marketplace was like. I ain't got to worry about that. Worry about what? Worry about that. Then I made Loose. If you feel stuck, if you feel let down, all you want to do is sit down, you could do it up. Had a response to that. From that response, I made Fun Part.
Yo, Fun Part is the name of the lyric. That's a lyric. Straight smash, and you know it when you hear it.
Can you hear it?
Had a response to that with the video and everything. Have a
so
song.
Good.
Kinetic now that I'm not sure if you've heard, but Kinetic has done better at radio in 3 weeks than Fun Part did in about 10 weeks.
And they'll see Kinetic. That be the name of the track. 38 years in the game and I'm back. Don't worry about money or the fame that I lack. They locked the front door, so I came in the back. You miss me?
That I have people receptive, not as much of resistance and willing to listen, and then seeing what the responses to Kinetic is going to beget my next single, and then other songs to build from that. I wouldn't have been able to make Kinetic unless I had made the first three beforehand. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea of an album, I'm not, especially with how music is consumed right now, everybody, gets an album has a release date, everybody listens to it for a week, they pick their best ones, and they kind of move on with that.
A playlist.
They do the playlist, and they'll even do that with Kendrick. He just did the Super Bowl, and people, are like, okay, what's next after GNX? And GNX just came out like not even 2 months ago. So I'm looking at that like, okay, let me really use my experience and my wisdom to survey the landscape, say, okay, this is how they're responding not only to my music, but the other music that's out there, and then get inspired given that scenario. And I'm coming up with, once again, the best music of my life, because I'm not saying, oh, the album needs a slow song, the album needs this, the album needs that. No, what's the best song I could put out right now with all the knowledge I have looking at the music that's there. I will say, what's next will be more music. What exactly it sounds like or anything, I couldn't tell you, but I'll definitely keep making music.
I think that's awesome. I appreciate you being willing to have the conversation.
Sure.
Hearing your music, I knew I wanted to meet you like a lot of people want to and just get a little bit of the story. You're such a thoughtful guy, and I just love the insight, and I love the depth of the things you have to say. It's been I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
I did. No, and I definitely
because I
did.
love it. I think this has been terrific.
No, this has been great. I mean, I hope this gets a lot of views, because a lot of stuff that I've said that I haven't said anywhere else, and it's really provoked thought with me. And for me, it's good because I like to be able to, I wouldn't say defend, but I like to be able to kind of illuminate
sure.
the thoughts that I have, and also kind of, show that there's a method to what I'm doing, that it's not just randomly.
It wasn't luck.
Yeah, no. Well, it's not luck, but I always say you put yourself in a position to benefit from stuff. So if I tell you that I could turn $10,000 into $1 million, it's only luck if you have $10,000.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So that's what it is. Using that analogy, I just put myself in a position where I can benefit from pieces of advice or a change in the marketplace or a shift or people's reaction to certain things. Oh, well, let me do this artistically, or let me meet with those people and put myself in the best position I can. So that's been the fun, the really fun part of it for me. Plus the fact I wouldn't have been able to do this at 22 or 25. I need this level of wisdom and this level of experience and this level of confidence that I don't walk into a room and say, oh, well, your best days are behind you and blah, blah, blah. I hear that. I heard that at 25. I heard that at 27. 57, it's like, okay, you may think that. I have to prove to you that it's different.
Yeah, and I think just based on this conversation, you're definitely doing it. Listening to your music,
thank you, man.
It's terrific.
Thank you,
It renews every time we do these podcasts. I say it in my mind, and I'm gonna say it out loud. This is why we're doing this project. Stories like this. Hear your name. Everybody wants to hear about the song they remember, but learning more about you and your life and what you're doing now and the passion you still have for what you're doing. I think makes this project so much more fun. So thanks for adding to it.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
All right, Young MC. These Amazing Arizonans podcasts are available on all the platforms for podcasts. Check out all the episodes. We've been doing them now. There's more than 20 of them. And I appreciate you, Marvin, for doing this. And just another episode of Amazing Arizonans. Thanks for checking us out.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, just bust the move.